Hello, I'm Zeb Highben, Director of Chapel Music at Duke University Chapel, and I'm joined by Dr. Robert Parkins, University Organist and Professor of the Practice of Music, who is coming up on his final recital at Duke Chapel and a well-earned retirement. Bob, I was wondering, could you tell me about the state of the organs in the chapel when you got here in 1975? There were just two at that point, right?
Yes, and the only reason that there were two was that 6 years before I got here, the second one was added in Memorial Chapel. The Aeolian, of course, was here since 1932, the early days of the chapel. And it was the only organ in the chapel until the late 60s when a small Holtkamp instrument was put in Memorial Chapel to the side. The Aeolian was already in need of repair and had been for several years before I got here.
The Flentrop was in process, it was on its way, it was just being installed. What was the state of that instrument in your first years on campus?
I got here just at the right time. Yeah. Because Fenner Douglas had done all the work and several other people. Yeah. This was a multi-year process. But I got here in 75. The organ arrived in the spring of 76, and it wasn't finished, of course, until the late fall of 76. So the first year, both Fenner and I had to play everything, including 16th century music, on the one instrument we had here.
Yeah. Once the Flentrop was installed, there were a series of dedication recitals, and you played one of them, is that right?
Yes, this is what happened, that Fenner played the inaugural recitals in the late fall. And then in the spring of 77, there were 5 follow-up inaugural recitals. Mm-hmm. And I played one of those.
Gotcha.
He was my predecessor and the first one in modern times to have that title. This is a half century ago. And then Peter Williams followed him as university organist. He was a distinguished professor, first of all. As university organist, he actually didn't play very much. As a matter of fact, in 85, Fenner was just leaving and Peter was just arriving at the same time. And one of the things he said after he got here was, he says, well, I have this title, university organist. What am I supposed to do? And I wasn't sure. Mm-hmm. But Peter Williams, he directed the organ recital series.
Did the recital series start as a part of the Flentrop dedication? Was there a recital series before the Flentrop was installed?
Back in the day, there were recitals on the Aeolian, but they weren't part of a regular series, as I understand it.
Right.
And when the Flentrop was installed, Fenner immediately began to initiate a regular recital series with, I believe at the time it was 6 per year, including those by the house organists.
Then the next major change in the instruments is late 90s with the installation of the Brombaugh?
The arrival of the Brombaugh really, that began when Peter Williams first arrived in 85.
Wow.
Because he had gotten the idea that he would like to replace the Aeolian with a big instrument by Brombaugh in romantic style, even though John was not known for that sort of thing. He was one of the world's best organ builders, but romantic organs weren't his, primary focus at all. He was mainly building sort of 17th and 18th century style, North German style instruments. So that never came to pass.